Listen closer. The quiet is trying to tell you something. Some days don't arrive with trumpets. There's no parade to announce what's changing. There's just a thicker kind of stillness. The kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. The soft drum of your heart. The way light rests on the table like it's choosing you. In that stillness, you might feel it like a door shifting somewhere inside the house of your life. Moving on. Silent hinges. Nothing spectacular to the eye. But the body knows. The field around you knows. And if you're gentle enough to notice, you know. 2. Great turning points rarely explode into being. They approach like the tide, steady, inevitable, and perfectly on time. The universe doesn't shout in your ear. It tunes your frequency to match what's about to arrive. It begins with subtle rearrangements, old habits slipping off your shoulders as if they never quite fit, an unexpected ease in places that used to clench, a hunch that keeps returning with the persistence of a friend who loves you. A stranger's sentence lands like an answer you didn't know you were asking for. A dream leaves behind not just images, but instructions. Coincidences thicken, and the more you soften, the clearer it becomes you're being aligned, not pushed. I'm not here to sell you a miracle. I'm here to speak to the part of you that's already felt this 1,000 times and learned to distrust it because it didn't look dramatic enough. In a culture addicted to noise, the quiet can feel suspicious. We're taught to chase, to hustle, to hunt life down and drag it home. But there is a gentler law written beneath the louder ones. Life meets you at the level of your field, not your force, your frequency. When the field is jagged, life mirrors that jaggedness. Friction multiplies. Small problems become big ones. And the nervous system lives like a bird against glass. Wings frantic. Nowhere to go. When the field is coherent, when you're breathing with awareness, telling yourself the truth, choosing love over the reflex, to tighten pathways appear that weren't visible a moment before. It's not magic. It's resonance. The inner river stops trying to flow uphill. Maybe you're noticing it right now. Certain conversations no longer hook you. The opinion you needed yesterday has no purchase today. The clutter you tolerated for years suddenly feels uninhabitable. That's not fatigue. That's intelligence. It's the subtle guidance system of your life, pruning what can't travel with you. We call it loss because the form changes. But at the level of energy, what's happening is space making. Like a gardener who cuts back a branch, not to punish the tree, but to help it bear fruit. I've lived through seasons where the door didn't move. It cracked. Times when grief made a nest in my throat, and every outcome seemed to belong to someone braver than me. I tried pushing harder. I tried being clever. I tried controlling the river. None of it worked. Because effort can't substitute for alignment. The river goes where the river goes. The day things began to change was not the day I learned a new trick, but the day I sat on the edge of my own bed and said, I will stop arguing with what is asking to be born. I didn't feel powerful. I felt honest. And in that honesty, my field settled. The door I'd been banging on was never locked. It was waiting for my hands to stop shaking. Here is how real alignment often looks, not glamorous, but holy in its simplicity. You inhale, fully, like you haven't trusted a breath in a long time. You hold a few seconds of mercy in your chest, and then let it go. You speak a small truth to yourself. The one you've avoided because you feared it would rearrange your life. And it does. But not like a wrecking ball, more like a sunrise. You give yourself permission to not know the entire plan, only the next right step. You notice that the old craving to prove yourself has grown quiet, replaced by a softer desire to be congruent, to have your inner life and your outer life rhyme. In quantum language, attention carries energy. Where you place it, you feed it. If you place it on panic, panic multiplies. If you place it on presence, presence expands. So, when the signs begin to gather, when the coincidences start weaving a pattern, When a few small wins appear like bright stones on a path, your mind will try to rush ahead, to define, to possess, to make sure you don't lose whatever is finally going right. That's the exact moment to slow down. Let the pattern finish introducing itself. The field is intelligent. It doesn't need you to clamp down. It needs you to cooperate. Cooperating with life isn't passive. It's precise. It sounds like calling the person you quietly know you need to call, even if your stomach flips. It looks like closing the tab on the thing you use to distract yourself and letting the silence do its work. It feels like choosing one clean action over 15 scrambled ones. It's that conversation you keep postponing because you think conflict means failure, when really, dodging truth is the failure. You don't have to fix the entire story tonight. You only need to stop lying to your own body. I wish someone had told me earlier that the signs weren't meant to dazzle me. They were meant to regulate me. A small, timely compliment that loosens the old narrative of unworthiness. A check arrives not to rescue you, but to teach your nervous system what sustainability feels like. A door closes, so you don't have to waste another year proving to yourself that it was never your door. These aren't random. They're calibrations. Life is sizing the suit to the self you're becoming. Of course, right after the alignment comes the old test. The final gatekeeper does its job. It shows up wearing a mask that looks like reason, offering you safety on familiar terms. Shrink back. Say yes when your body says no. Take the small bargain. Abandon the frequency you just found. I've met that gatekeeper in different outfits, an apology to keep the peace, when what was needed was a boundary, an opportunity that paid well, but cost too much of my soul, a reunion with an old pattern pretending to have changed. Every time I answered with an old frequency, the door that had moved went still again. Every time I answered with the new one, even if my voice shook, the hinges kept turning. So if you're here, watching this, in a season where the quiet feels heavier than usual, where the room holds its breath, like it's waiting for you, I want you to know this. You're not late, and you're not imagining it. You are in the corridor. The hallway between who you've been and who you're about to be is not a punishment, it's an acoustics chamber. It lets you hear your life more clearly. Don't sprint through. Walk it with awareness. Let your souls touch the ground of your own becoming. Tonight, before you sleep, place a hand over your heart. Ask, what is the next truthful thing? Not the biggest thing, not the most impressive. The next truthful thing. Maybe it's drinking water before coffee. Maybe it's cleaning the corner of a room so your field can breathe. Maybe it's sending the email that sets you free. Do that, and then listen again. The door will move. It cannot not move when you become the person it was built for. I can't promise fireworks. I can promise this: when you stop forcing, you start hearing, and when you start hearing, you begin to move like rivers. Move when they stop trying to run uphill quietly, steadily, all the way to the sea. 1. Inner amplification. When the inner voice grows larger. There are stretches of life when the outside world quiets just enough for the inside world to grow louder. Not dramatic, not mystical, just unmistakable. You wake and notice that your feelings don't skim the surface anymore. They have depth, like a lake that was always there, but only now reflects the mountains clearly. Your intuition, once a whisper you could ignore, begins to ring with the steadiness of a bell. And your sensitivity, perhaps the very thing you used to apologize for, suddenly feels like a compass placed gently in your palm. In these seasons, the ordinary turns meaningful without asking permission. A stranger says one offhand line in the grocery store, and it threads perfectly into last night's dream, as if the universe were finishing its sentence through another mouth. A book you randomly pull from a forgotten shelf falls open to a paragraph that names the exact knot in your chest. A number appears again and again on a receipt. A street sign. A quiet digital clock. And somehow your body knows it's less about superstition and more about synchronization. Patterns reveal themselves like constellations, and you realize the stars were always there. It's your eyes that widened. When this inner amplification arrives, the mind naturally wants to seize the reins. It wants to decode, to diagram, to hunt for certainty. But the deeper truth is gentler than that. In the quantum sense, what is coming alive in you doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be stayed with. The seed is sprouting under the soil. Your job isn't to tug at it to make it grow faster. Your job is to water, to warm, to wait. The unfinishedness is not a problem. It is the proof that something living is underway. You will feel the tug to interpret every sign in a single sitting. What does this mean? What does it want from me? Where is this going? I know that urgency. I've tried to outthink my life more than once, as if clarity were a prize that logic could purchase, but the inner voice doesn't use the currency of force. It speaks in resonance. If you push, it recedes. If you soften, it sits closer. Presence is its language. Patience is its grammar. Start where the body meets the message. When you catch a pattern, words aligning with dreams, images repeating, melodies returning, pause and scan for where your body says yes. It might be a warmth at the sternum, a release at the back of the neck, a subtle settling in the belly. Let that sensation be the anchor, not the story you build around it. In this way, you are training your nervous system to trust the difference between fear dressed as urgency and truth arriving as calm. This inner amplification often brings with it a shift in appetite. The conversations you once tolerated now feel noisy. The media you used to binge tastes like cotton. You reach for cleaner food, clairer rooms, simpler clothes. Not out of virtue, but from relief. You are not becoming prudish, you are becoming precise. Like an instrument being tuned, you notice even small dissonances, because harmony is finally within reach. It's common here to wonder if you're making it all up. You aren't. You are making it real, which is different. Reality, seen through a purely mechanical lens. You can feel like a closed room fax on the wall, a clock ticking. No, windows. But reality, felt through an open field, reveals itself as responsive, where attention goes. Energy gathers. Where tenderness rests, life softens. Your inner world is not separate from the outer. It is the way the outer finds you. Let what is subtle remain subtle. Not every sign needs a headline. Think of these moments like small birds landing on your windowsill. If you lunge, you frighten them away. If you sit still, they stay long enough to sing. Keep a soft record instead. A few lines in a notebook. A quick voice memo while walking. A photograph of the place where you felt the shift. These traces are not trophies. They are gentle reminders to your future self that the guidance was real when the mind later tries to deny it. You may notice a growing divide between the part of you that seeks guarantees and the part of you that is willing to be guided. This is simply the old nervous system, doing its job. Survival loves certainty. Offer it kindness. Tell it you will not abandon it. Then choose the next honest step anyway. The inner voice rarely gives you the map. It gives you the footstep. Make the call. Decline the invitation that knots your stomach. Tidy, the one corner of the room you keep ignoring. These are not small acts. They are how a field comes into coherence. I have watched my own life pivot on movements that would look trivial on paper, standing up and opening a window in the middle of an argument, deleting a draft email that sounded right but felt wrong, taking shoes off on the grass for 5 slow breaths. Before a hard decision, these choices didn't make me special. They made me congruent. And congruence is the doorway through which larger changes walk into the room. There will be days when the inner voice seems to vanish. Don't panic. The ocean doesn't disappear when the tide is low. It is obeying a rhythm larger than your plans. Use those quieter stretches to build steadiness. Sleep like you mean it. Feed your body as if it were someone you love. and practice small rituals that tell your system you are safe. Safety expands perception. When your body feels held, your intuition speaks up again, not because it's fickle, but because signal travels best through relaxed wire. Be mindful of who gets access to this tender expansion. Some people, even kind ones, will pull you back into old weather because they only know you inside that climate. Walk gently with them, but guard the doorway. New frequency asks for new boundaries, not walls of fear, but edges of self-respect. Speak less about what is still forming. Protect the hush that surrounds beginnings. Eventually, the inner amplification will ask something of you. It will not ask for perfection. It will ask for permission. Your permission to let the next truth rearrange you. This might look like forgiving someone because your peace is more valuable than your case. It might look like stepping toward a work that pays less, but costs you less of your soul. It might look like learning to receive without apology, which for many of us is harder than giving. The request will be specific and simple, and you will know it is genuine because your body relaxes even as your mind objects. If you find yourself afraid, remember, this uncertainty is not a verdict. It is a sign that you are standing at the edge of a wider field. The unknown you feared as emptiness is often spaciousness. The gap between the old story and the new life is not a failure of planning. It is an invitation to be carried a few steps by something kinder than control. So stay. Stay with the dream that repeats and the sentence that won't let you go. Stay with the number that greets you at odd hours, with the melody that follows you from room to room. Stay with the small warmth that arrives in your chest when you imagine saying yes to what you actually want. Stay, not because you're passive, but because this is how you participate with what's being born. In quantum terms, observation influences outcome. In human terms, loving attention grows what it touches. One day, you will look back on this exact stretch and realize that nothing big happened and everything changed. Not in a single burst, but in hundreds of unremarkable moments where you chose to remain present rather than to rush, to listen rather than to explain, to align rather than to argue. And like rivers that stop fighting gravity, your life will begin to move with a quiet strength that needs no proof. Your inner voice is not a stranger. It is the oldest friend you have. Why? When it grows larger, it is not trying to impress you. It is trying to bring you home. 2. The quiet anchor when the wind rises. Lower the sails. There are days, just before life turns a corner, when the wind seems to come from every direction at once. Message pile up. Plan collide. The body tightens as if bracing for an impact that never quite arrives. In these seasons, the old impulse wakes up inside us, the urge to prove, to push, to outrun the weather. But storms do not negotiate with speed. The wiser move is humbler. When the wind rises, you lower the sails. You reduce the surface of yourself that the world can toss around, and you return to the parts of life that do not sway. This isn't a performance. It's a posture, and a posture, however simple, changes everything about how a ship meets the sea. I learned this after years of trying to impress life into cooperation. I made the lists. I spoke the declarations. I aimed my will like an arrow. Sometimes it worked briefly. More often, I ended the day exhausted and strangely farther from myself than when I started. The breakthrough didn't come in some grand revelation. It arrived in a quiet admission. I don't need a louder engine. I need a stronger anchor. What holds in high wind is rarely dramatic. It's small and faithful. When the field around you whirls faster, choose rituals that slow time down to the beat of your own chest. I returned to 3 of them, again and again. Not because they are fashionable, but because they keep the keel in the water. First, a single deep breath that you actually feel. Not the kind you half take while thinking about the next task, but the kind that opens the ribs and reminds the body it is inhabited. Inhale until your shoulders want to drop on their own. Pause where the air turns weightless. Exhale, like you're setting down a bag you carried too long. One honest breath is not a cure-all, but it reintroduces you to the present, the only place your power has ever lived. If you can manage 5 breaths, do 5. If you can only do 1 between meetings, do 1, and let it count. The nervous system reads sincerity more than duration. Second, a few honest lines on paper. I don't mean literary lines or curated reflections designed to impress a future reader. I mean the kind of sentence that would embarrass you if anyone else saw it. The sentence that names the fear beneath the plan, the resentment beneath the fatigue, the longing beneath the anger. Ink has a way of clarifying truth that talking cannot reach. When your hand tells the page what your mouth refuses to say, the tangle loosens. You are not writing to fix your life. You are writing to stop abandoning yourself. In that loyalty, strength gathers. Third, a slow walk, with no destination worthy of a calendar. You don't need a forest to do this. 3 quiet blocks will do. Leave your phone at home, or put it in your pocket like a sleeping child you won't disturb. Notice the weight of your feet, the way the air changes at the corner. The tree you've passed 100 times, but never actually greeted. Movement in gentle rhythm is the oldest way the body knows to metabolize stress. The walk is not a workout. It is a conversation between your steps and the ground that carries you. On paper, these anchors look too simple to matter. That's the irony of true medicine. It often hides in plain sight. The ego prefers big gestures. It loves grand strategies and impressive broadcasts. Declarations about who we will become by Q3. Announcements about the new self we will unveil on Monday morning. And yet, energy does not take orders from announcements. It attunes to what you repeat, not to what you proclaim once, with fire in your eyes. A daily breath will alter your field more reliably than a once-a-year vow. There will be days when lowering the sails feels like failure, as if you're refusing to participate in the race. Everyone else seems to be running gay. But the race is often an illusion of the mind, a treadmill built of other people's timelines. The ocean has no lanes. What you are practicing is not avoidance. It is navigation. Lowering the sails doesn't stop the journey. It preserves your ability to choose a direction when the gust passes. If you need an image, hold this one: a harbor at dawn. The water is not perfectly still, but it is honest. A few boats rock gently, ropes creaking, gulls complaining at nothing in particular. The day hasn't decided what it will be yet. In that early tremble, the captains check their knots, test the lines, breathe the air that will carry them. No one is shouting, and yet, everything that matters is being prepared. Your anchor's breath, page, walk are those knots and lines. They are how you greet the day before you demand anything from it. You might ask, what if the storm is inside me? What if the wind is my own mind? Then the anchors matter even more. The breath teaches your body a different ending to the story it keeps rehearsing. The page gives shape to the shapeless. Fears named become smaller. Griefs articulated become movable. The walk returns you to rhythm when thought has broken into static. None of these remove sorrow or uncertainty. They make you capable within them. And capability, in spiritual terms, is a kind of quiet grace. There's also a practical mercy in these rituals. They take very little time to begin, and almost no talent to perform. You can breathe in an elevator without anyone knowing. You can write 3 true sentences while the kettle warms. You can walk around the block between obligations and come back a different person than the one who left. The threshold is low. The return is high. In a world that asks you to constantly prove your worth, these acts are how you remember that worth precedes proof. I won't pretend that anchors eliminate the temptation to overreact. The habit to rush will visit, wearing the same persuasive voice it always has. Do more, say more, grab more. When it does, answer. With the most tender rebellion, slow down, lower the sails. The boat that survives the squall is not the one with the strongest engine. It's the one whose captain knows when to let canvas rest. Over time, something almost invisible begins to change. The people who once rattled you don't reach you as easily. The deadlines that used to feel like cliffs soften into edges you can navigate. You start choosing responses instead of rehearsing reactions. Your field, once scattered by every gust, develops weight, like a tree that has grown its roots into deeper water. You become less interested in winning moments and more invested in keeping orientation. This is how seasons turn without breaking you. There will be those who misread your quiet as indifference. Let them. You are not withdrawing from life. You are withdrawing from the agreements that kept you off balance. You are choosing steadiness over spectacle, and that is a choice the soul recognizes as home. If you need a simple way to begin, try this before you speak. Breathe once. Before you decide, write 3 lines. You don't have to show anyone. Before you commit, walk until your shoulders drop. Then listen. The answer that remains after your body relaxes is the one you can live with. In the end, these anchors are not sacred because they're special. They're sacred because they're repeatable. In a universe that responds to frequency, repetition is devotion. Breath by breath, page by page, step by step, you teach your system that safety is available even when certainty is not. And when your body trusts that truth, your life stops flinching. The wind can rise if it must. Your sails will know what to do. 3. Soft dissolution. When the old loses its grip without a fight. There comes a season when the things that once held you in place no longer ask for both your hands. They don't explode or betray you. They just loosen. A friendship grows quiet. And, to your surprise, there is no drama to fix. The silence simply fits better than the conversations used to. The job that once felt like a calling now sounds like background noise from a radio in a room you don't live in anymore. The roles you wore, rescuer, achiever, entertainer, peacemaker, feel like clothes you've outgrown. You can still button them, but the fabric pinches at the ribs. It's tempting to label this as loss, to call it failure or lack of loyalty. We are taught to measure love by how long we can carry what has become too heavy. But soft dissolution isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's the body telling the truth. The mind refuses to say out loud, I am not there anymore. What you're feeling is not collapse. It's space being made quietly, intelligently, for what can actually meet you, where you now live. I used to fight these seasons. When something began to fade, I pulled it closer. I scheduled the talk, wrote the plan, made the promise. I feared that letting the old loosen was the same as giving up on myself. But trying to revive a chapter whose story has finished is like watering a paper flower. The gesture is earnest. The outcome is disappointing. Life is not punishing you when it asks you to put something down. It is graduating you. Soft dissolution rarely arrives with a single decisive moment. It drifts in on small signals. You leave a gathering more tired than you arrived. And not because the day was long. The task you used to accomplish with ease now requires an argument with yourself. The praise that once fueled you lands like a compliment to someone you no longer are. Notice how the body speaks before the mind can sense the slight tightening in the jaw. The breath that forgets to finish. The shoulder that doesn't lower even in sleep. These are not random discomforts. They are the gentle alarms of misalignment. The instinct is to make a case against the person, against the job, against yourself. But soft dissolution doesn't need a courtroom. It isn't about collecting evidence to prove why the old must go. It's about recognizing that the current has changed direction. Rivers don't apologize when they find a new path to the sea. They just go. There is a clean kindness available here. Release without accusation. You don't have to make a villain of what once served you. That friendship may have kept you alive in a season when you didn't know your own voice. That job might have paid for the classes that opened another door. That role, yes. Even the one you resent was the scaffolding that helped build a sturdier you. Gratitude doesn't mean you keep carrying what's finished. Gratitude means you set it down with soft hands. How do you set it down? Not with a grand gesture. With small, faithful actions that honor the truth without spectacle. If a relationship is loosening, let your calendar reflect what your body already knows. Fewer meetings by habit, the more time with the people and places where you are most yourself. If your work has thinned into noise, begin the patient work of listening for what is calling you now 15 minutes a day to learn, to write, to knock on a door you told yourself was for braver people. If a role feels tight, experiment with not performing it for a day. When the familiar cue arrives, someone's disappointment, a gap that begs to be filled, practice staying still. Notice what happens when you are not the old character on cue. Often, the world keeps turning. Often, your nervous system thanks you. There is grief here, and it deserves a seat at your table. You can love what something was and still admit what it is. You can miss the ease of yesterday and still tell the truth about today. Grief isn't evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that you're alive. Let it move through you without letting it drive. Cry if you need to. Write the letter you'll never send. Walk the long way home. Then, when your breath is steadier, ask the simplest question. What is the next honest step? Not the final plan. Just the next honest step. The mind will protest, but what if I regret this? What if I'm being ungrateful? What if I end up alone? Fear loves the word forever. Keep your decisions in the size of today. You are not abandoning a lifetime. You are honoring a moment. If it remains true tomorrow, you will honor it again. Frequencies shift with practice, not with panic. A soft no repeated is stronger than a shouted no you don't believe. Be careful of making noise to avoid silence. When something is dissolving, we often stir conflict to justify the exit. We demand a scene, so the ending feels earned. But scenes cost energy you need for the chapter that's arriving. Allowing a gentle fade out is not cowardice. It's maturity. You are choosing to spend your strength on beginning well instead of ending loudly. There's a tenderness to the way new life approaches when you make room for it. It rarely rushes. It tests the air, just like you do. It sends a small sign, a genuine conversation that leaves you lighter, a task that takes half the time because you're finally in your lane. A morning, you wake, without the familiar dread. Don't overlook these because they're not fireworks. Fireworks dazzle and disappear. Dawn is quiet, and then it's everywhere. As the old loses its grip, another temptation appears to fill the space immediately, so you don't have to feel the in-between. Resist it. Empty space is not failure, it's incubation. In quantum terms, a field reorganizes before a new form emerges. In human terms, your life needs a breath between the exhale of what was and the inhale of what's becoming. Let the pause be a teacher. Let it show you what you reach for when you're not reaching out of habit. Soft dissolution also changes your relationship with loyalty. True loyalty is devotion to the aliveness in you, not to the structures that once hosted that aliveness. You can be loyal to your growth and still be kind. You can say, "This is no longer true for me," without insisting it must not be true for anyone else. That generous clarity frees both sides you to step forward, the other to find what actually fits them now. If you're thinking, "This sounds gentle but feels brutal," I understand. The gentleness isn't in how it feels, it's in how you handle it. Brutality would be staying where your soul cannot breathe. Gentleness is telling the truth with a steady voice, and then living as if the truth is trustworthy. Sometimes, the bravest thing you'll do this year is not to conquer a mountain, but to stop climbing the wrong one. One day, you'll look back at this exact season and see it as an act of intelligence you couldn't yet name. The relationship needed to thin so love could thicken in a truer place. The job needed to conclude so your work could begin. The role needed to crack so your voice could get out. You didn't fail. You made space. And space, when tended with presence, becomes the doorway everything real knows how to find. So if you notice the old losing its pull, if the rope slides through your hands and, for once, you don't chase it, let that be okay. Stand on your own deck. Feel the boat steady under you. Let the current carry what isn't yours to drag. You are not breaking apart. You are loosening what was never meant to be permanent. This is not the end of your devotion. It's the evolution of it. And on the other side of this soft dissolution is not emptiness, but room for a life that fits. Room for breath that goes all the way in. Room for the voice that has been waiting years for you to hear it and say, yes, it's time for the preview, a taste before the main course. There's a moment in every good kitchen when the chef dips a spoon into the sauce, test, and nods. The dish isn't plated, the candles aren't lit, guests haven't even arrived. But in that small taste, there's a quiet certainty. We're close. Life has a way of offering us the same mercy. A preview, a sample spoon before the full meal is brought to the table. It rarely looks dramatic. A small opportunity that fits with uncanny ease. A phone call you didn't expect that lands in the exact groove you've been clearing with your efforts. A compliment that arrives not to inflate your ego but to correct your vision of yourself. Even a modest flow of money. Nothing flashy. Just enough to prove the road is real. These are not accidents. They're calibrations. The universe is not dangling a prize. It's adjusting your nervous system to the size of what's coming. The mistake most of us make, myself included, is to treat the preview like a verdict. If it's good, we cling. If it wobbles, we're bonnets. The mind, trained by old scarcity, lunges for control. This is it. This is everything. Don't lose it. But a preview is not the meal. It's training for your identity. It's the gentle conversion from the person who had to strain to hold things together to the person who can receive without fear of losing. Receiving without fear sounds simple until you try it. The old body is used to bracing. Even when a good thing arrives, the muscles stand guard, scanning the horizon for the moment the rug gets pulled. We call this humility or realism, but so often it's just an old habit of self-protection. The preview's task is to teach your body a new baseline safety in abundance, steadiness in visibility, ease in enoughness. So when the main course is served, you don't choke on your own good fortune. You'll know a preview is at work because it has proportion. It doesn't flood you. It meets you. The email you've long hoped for shows up, but it's a conversation, not a contract. The opportunity appears, but on a schedule that leaves room for you to sleep. A person enters your life and you feel seen, but not consumed. There is space around the blessing. And the space is part of the blessing. It says no urgency. You can exhale while you receive. I remember a season when a door I'd knocked on for years finally opened a crack. Not wide, just enough to slide a hand through and feel the warm air of a new room. My first instinct was to pry it open with all the force I had left. But something quieter insisted taste. Don't devour. Walk. Don't sprint. Let your cells learn this light. So I did. I took the meeting without squeezing it for outcomes. I accepted the praise without explaining it away. I deposited the small check and let it be small, trusting it as a sign rather than a finish line. Slowly, I noticed the change where it mattered most, not in my calendar, but in my chest. The flutter eased. The guard dog inside my ribs curled up and slept. I was being prepared to hold what I once only hoped to touch. This is the deeper service of the preview. It rehearses your nervous system for more. Not more noise or obligation, more congruence, more truth, more life that fits. If you've spent years running on fumes, even kindness can feel suspicious. If you've been applauded for your ability to carry 10 times your size, rest can feel like guilt. The preview dissolves these reflexes by offering just enough good to be undeniable and just enough space for you to practice, not ruining it with fear. Of course, the mind will try to upgrade the preview into a promise it can control. It will pepper you with questions. Is this permanent? Will it scale? What if it disappears? Let the questions pass like weather. You don't need the forecast to enjoy the sky that's here. If something is real for today, let it be real for today. When tomorrow comes, you'll meet it with the same presence. This isn't passivity. It's mastery, the ability to stay inside the moment that's actually happening instead of negotiating with a dozen imagined futures. There's another trap to watch for turning the preview into a test you must ace. You finally get the small chance, and suddenly you expect yourself to perform like a person who has lived in that chance for a decade. That's not fairness. That's sabotage dressed as ambition. The preview is for learning. It's allowed to be awkward. Take the call and stumble a little. Share the draft and let it be shy. Sit with the person who sees you and let your voice tremble if it needs to. The point isn't to impress. The point is to adapt. Every time you stay present through tenderness, your capacity stretches without tearing. Think of a musician rehearsing in an empty hall. The first notes echo strangely. The room feels too big. They don't condemn themselves for not filling it perfectly. They keep playing, letting the space teach them where to breathe, where to hold, where to soften. That is your task. In a preview, let the new space teach you. You don't need to conquer it. You need to become resonant with it. How do you cooperate with a preview gently? Thank it without turning it into a trophy. Build small practices that match what's arriving. If the preview is financial, practice stewardship on the scale you want, not the scale you fear. Save a little. Give a little. Invest in tools that honor your work. If the preview is relational, practice honesty at the speed of trust. No rushing confessions. No shrinking truths. If the preview is vocational, practice showing up like the person who belongs there on time. Grounded. Hydrated. With your notes in order and your shoulders not auditioning for Atlas. There will be days when the preview goes quiet and you question whether you imagined it. This is normal. The tide that brings the sample also recedes. Use the ebb to stabilize the gains you made in the flow. Keep treating your system as if the good is still true, because often it is the surface looks still while the deeper current keeps moving. Doubt will visit. Offer it tea, not the keys. The tenderness of a preview is that it refuses to be your savior. It won't fix your life. It will introduce you to the you who can. You'll notice subtle shifts. You apologize less for existing. You negotiate less with your own yes. You don't chase eyes across the room to find permission for your joy. The preview doesn't inflate you. It sizes you no bigger than love, no smaller than truth. And when the main course finally arrives, when the larger contract lands, when the partnership deepens, when the work that fits begins to fill your days, you won't need fireworks to believe it. You'll feel it the way a house feels. Heat returning to the radiators steady, room by room. Your body won't need to clutch because it has practiced letting good things stay. Your voice won't sprint because it has learned to walk inside. Yes. Your heart won't bargain because it knows what enoughness tastes like. So if life has placed a small, shimmering thing in your hands, a phone call, a check, a kind sentence, a door that opens just a little, don't demand that it be everything. Let it be enough to teach you. Taste it with reverence. Breathe while you hold it. Let your system memorize the feeling of rightness without the old reflex to sabotage or speed. You are not being teased. you are being tuned. One day, you'll laugh at how tempted you were to turn a spoonful into a feast. The feast was coming. It always was. The miracle is not that life finally said yes to you. It's that you finally said yes to life without bracing. And like rivers that stop fighting gravity, you'll find yourself receiving what you once chased, calmly, wholly, and ready to digest the goodness that was made for you all along. 5. The threshold test. The last fire that turns you into gold. There is a moment on every real path when the air changes. You've done the inner work, cleared space, let what was old and heavy loosen its grip. You've tasted the preview, felt your system begin to trust goodness. And then, right on schedule, something arrives wearing the clothes of reason, carrying the voice you used to obey. It looks like safety. It feels like déjà vu. It is the threshold test, the last fire, before the metal becomes gold. This test does not hate you. It is not punishment for wanting more out of your life. It is the intelligence of growth asking a single, precise question. Will you meet this moment with yesterday's reflex or today's frequency? Because crossing into a wider life is not only about receiving new things. It is about becoming someone who can hold them without collapsing back into the old weather. The test takes many forms, but its texture is familiar. An old fear returns with better arguments. A reasonable offer whispers that you can have comfort if you will only shrink a little. Sign here, nod there. Silence, that truth that keeps rising in your throat. A small crisis pops up exactly where you are most tender. A bill the week you decide to invest in yourself. A misunderstanding the day you choose. New boundaries. A voice from your past, wondering who you think you are. If it were random, it wouldn't sting so precisely. That precision is your clue. You've reached the edge of your old territory, and the gatekeeper is doing its ancient job. Gatekeepers show up in myths for a reason. At the rim of every new world, something asks for proof of passage. Not a fee, but evidence. It wants to see your alignment, not your drama. It listens for coherence in your nervous system, not volume in your speech. And it is remarkably consistent. If you answer with your old pattern, over-explaining, over-giving, overworking, appeasing, disappearing, the door stands still. If you answer with your new frequency, steady breath, clean boundary, honest, no, humble, yes, the hinges begin to turn. I have met this fire more than once. Sometimes it wore a paycheck that looked like a blessing but cost me the voice I had just found. Sometimes it wore an apology that asked me to return to a version of myself I had vowed to leave. Sometimes it wore my own ambition, insisting that speed was proof of worth. Every time I responded with hurry, I lost ground. Every time I paused long enough to feel the tremor in my chest and choose the calmer truth, the path opened a little more, as if life were saying, yes, that's the one. Walk like that. What makes the threshold test so unsettling is that it imitates familiarity. Your body wants to go on autopilot. It remembers how to survive storms by tightening, pleasing, fixing, proving. But survival and arrival are not the same posture. The bridge from one to the other is small, physical, and immediate. Breathe. Not as a slogan. As a biology, lengthen the exhale until your shoulders drop without asking permission. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest. Feel your feet in your shoes. You are telling your system, we are not in the old battlefield. We are in a new room, and we can answer from here. Answering from the new room doesn't require a speech. It often sounds like a single sentence you can say without bracing. That no longer works for me. I need time before I decide. I appreciate the offer, and I'm going to pass. It can also be silence, the choice not to defend a decision you made from alignment. Defensiveness is the old pattern's favorite fuel. It keeps you spinning. The new frequency is less interested in convincing and more interested in remaining congruent. You may worry that choosing differently makes you selfish or ungrateful. That fear is part of the test. It asks whether your loyalty is to the form that used to carry you or to the aliveness that wants to move through you now. Loyalty to aliveness is not betrayal. It is fidelity at a deeper octave. It honors what got you here while refusing to let yesterday's scaffolding become tomorrow's prison. Sometimes, the threshold test comes through people you love. They're not villains. They are reading from the old script in which you performed a familiar role. Their nervous systems learned to settle when you overfunctioned, and your change unsettles them. You don't need to demand that they evolve on your schedule. You only need to not abandon yourself to maintain their comfort. If a bond requires your self-erasure, it isn't a bond, it's a contract you outgrew. Love can remain while the terms evolve. Expect the test to be inconvenient. It rarely knocks when you feel strong. It arrives late at night, at the end of the month, after a long day, when it would be so easy to cave and call it being realistic. This is not cruelty, it's calibration. You are being invited to make a choice under conditions that used to undo you. Choosing differently here sends a clear signal through your field. We are not who we were when this pattern first formed. That clarity compacts into strength. The next time the same wind blows, you will not tip as easily. If you stumble, and sometimes you will be kind. A lapse is not a verdict. The old pattern got one more dance. It doesn't get the whole party. Repair is part of the gold. Return to the breath. Write the 3 true sentences you avoided. Take the slow walk that reminds your muscles how honesty feels. Make the call that closes the loop. Apologize where you must. Reaffirm the boundary where you forgot it. This is not starting over. This is continuing. You'll notice something almost paradoxical. As you pass these tests, the world on the other side is not louder. It's clearer, notbusier, deeper. The success that lands doesn't demand that you fracture yourself to keep it. Opportunities match your nervous system's new capacity, not your old hunger. Relationships feel like oxygen, not auditions. Money arrives as a tool, not a master. The same life you have your city, your kitchen table. Your morning light begins to feel different, because you are different inside it. I sometimes think of the threshold test like a refining fire in a quiet forge. The metal is already valuable. The fire doesn't create worth. It reveals it. Heat lifts out the alloy, the people-pleasing, the secrecy, the hurry, the fear of being seen, and what remains holds shape at higher temperatures. You don't become invulnerable. You become true. And truth wears well. If you need a simple way to move through the next test, try this small sequence when the moment arrives. Feel your body, feel your breath, feel the ground. Name out loud if you can. The old reflex that wants to run the show. I want to fix this so they won't be upset. Or I want to grab this so I don't feel poor. Or I want to explain myself so I'm not misunderstood. Then ask a single question. What would I choose if I already belonged here? Answer with the smallest action that matches that belonging. Send the email you would send from enoughness. Speak the boundary you would speak if you trusted love to survive truth. Take the pause you would take if time were your ally, not your enemy. You might shake. That's fine. Gold can tremble and still be gold. One day soon, you will look back on a conversation you thought would break you. A bill you thought would define you. An invitation you thought you couldn't refuse. And you'll realize something tender and astonishing. The test was never about the other person, the number, or the door. It was about the you who walked through. You didn't win because you finally outsmarted the world. You crossed because you stopped abandoning the self that your life had been trying, all along, to deliver back to you. And that is the quiet victory. Not fireworks, not fanfare, just a deeper steadiness in your bones. A yes that doesn't need witnesses. A life that fits because you finally do. 6. The step-by-step map. Streetlights that don't illuminate the whole road. There is a point on every honest path where the mind starts bargaining for guarantees. It wants a flawless plan, a 12-month calendar, a promise that if you move now, you won't have to ache later. I know that urge well. I have built beautiful plans that looked perfect on paper and felt hollow in my chest. Eventually, I learned a quieter law life at this depth does not hand over a blueprint. It offers a beam just enough light for the next true step. Think of walking a city street at night. The lamps don't flood the entire avenue. They bloom in circles, one pool of light at a time. You step into the first circle. From there, the second becomes visible. If you demand to see the whole boulevard before you take a step, you'll never leave the curb. The path isn't withholding. It's teaching you how to move with light rather than with certainty. In the language of the quantum, potentials surround us like unplayed notes. Observation shapes them. Choice collapses them into form. Not grandstanding choices, not declarations shouted to impress a future audience. Simple, truthful moves that change the state of the system. The phone call you already know you need to make. The email that closes a loop. The appointment that honors a long-ignored ache. The single drawer you clear so your field can breathe. It seems trivial. It isn't. The universe is exquisitely responsive to sincerity at small scales. When the mind demands a perfect plan, it is often trying to prevent pain. Plans feel like armor, but armor is heavy, and heaviness slows the heart. What you need is orientation. Orientation comes from the next step you can take with a relaxed jaw and a steady exhale. The moment you take it, feedback arrives. A door cracks open, or it doesn't. A conversation lands, or it reveals a boundary you hadn't admitted yet. Either way, you're no longer in abstraction. You're in relationship with your life. I remember a season when everything in me wanted a master strategy. I kept sketching timelines that made me feel competent and strangely absent. One morning, I pushed aside the charts and asked a smaller question. What is the one action today that would still feel right if nobody clapped? The answer was plain. Call the person I'd been avoiding and tell the truth without a performance. I made the call. My voice shook. When it ended, the room felt bigger. I hadn't solved my future. I had returned myself to it. From that steadier ground, the next lamp lit. This is how the step-by-step map works. You don't muscle clarity into being. You create the conditions where clarity arrives on its own. You move, gently and precisely. You listen to what your action echoes back. Then you adjust, like a sailor trimming a sail by degrees. You don't need the wind to obey your plan. You need to feel its angle against your palm and shape your canvas accordingly. A life steered this way may appear slow from the outside. Inside, it feels like mercy, no wasted motion. No performative hurry, just rightness. One circle of lamplight at a time. The nervous system plays a crucial role here. When the mind can't see far, the body often panics. That is not failure. It is old training. The antidote isn't to bully yourself into bravery. It's to lower the arousal enough to take one clean step. A full breath that you actually feel. Shoulders dropping without being asked. Feet sensing the ground inside your shoes. This is how you tell your system. We don't need the whole road to be safe. We just need the next square of light. Safety expands perception. Once regulated, you'll notice opportunities that were invisible a moment ago. You might worry that small steps are too modest for the size of the life you want. I understand. But momentum in a coherent field doesn't come from scale. It comes from alignment multiplied by repetition. A single truthful email sent from calm does more to rewire your future than 100 frantic messages sent from fear. One honest conversation can retire a year of pretending. 10 minutes of daily practice will build a bridge that an occasional weekend of heroics cannot. If reality responds to frequency, then what you repeat matters more than what you announce. There is an art to reading the lamps. The next step often hides in plain sight. disguised as something too ordinary to qualify as spiritual. Wash the dishes so your working surface is clear. Book the checkup your body has been requesting. Move the chair that blocks the morning light. Cancel the meeting you agreed to against your own truth. The mind resists because it's been taught that transformation must look cinematic, but the field doesn't care about cinema. It cares about congruence. Each small action that matches your inner yes makes the next lamp brighter. You will also meet detours that don't reveal themselves as gifts until later. A person reschedules. A payment delays. A plan stutters. Old reflexes rush in catastrophe. Self-blame. The urge to force. Stay with your breath. Ask a softer question. What adjustment would I make if this obstruction were guidance, not punishment? Sometimes the answer is to wait a day. Sometimes it's to write the message you'd been postponing. Sometimes it's to reroute entirely. Trees don't argue with wind. They sway and remain. You can, too. The beautiful paradox is that your life becomes more efficient when you stop trying to be impressive. Efficiency, at this level, means less friction between inner truth and outer movement. The time you once spent rehearsing multiple futures is freed for the next single action that actually exists. This is not passivity. It is discipline, quiet, repeatable, forgiving. There will be people who demand your 5-year plan. Love them. And don't outsource your peace to their timeline. If words are required, offer the truth. You can stand in. I'm moving deliberately. The next step is clear, and I'm taking it. You'll know you've spoken from the new frequency when your body relaxes as the sentence leaves your mouth. If you're gut nuts, you may be selling a story instead of living one. Some nights, the lamps dim and fog rolls in. On those nights, trade ambition for upkeep. Nourish the instrument early bed. Clean water. One page of writing that nobody needs to see. Keep your promise to the smallest rituals that make you feel human. The map isn't gone. You're in a stretch where being well is the step. Clarity will not abandon a well-tended body for long. Eventually, you'll look back and realize that the road you couldn't see has been stitching itself together behind you. One call, one email, one boundary, one rearranged corner of a room. What looked from the curb like darkness was simply an invitation to participate in your unfolding, not supervise it. The plan you thought you needed has been replaced by something more faithful, a relationship with your own guidance that works in any weather. If you're standing at the edge right now, aching for a perfect map, try this gentle substitution. Ask not for certainty, but for the next lamp. Then treat that lamp as sacred. Step into it with your shoulders down. Let the light touch your face. Listen for what brightens as you move. And when the second circle appears, don't waste time congratulating or doubting yourself. Keep walking, street light to street light, breath to breath. You'll find that the path was never meant to be revealed all at once. It was meant to be lived into a road that meets you exactly where you are. And then a few steps beyond. 7. Activating the turning point, a tidal wave, born from well-timed ripples. There's a hush that comes right after the hard part. The way the world sounds when a storm finally decides to move on. Not celebration yet, just air you can breathe. You've walked through the gatekeeper's fire, answered from the new frequency instead of the old reflex, and kept faith with the next honest step when your mind begged for a perfect map. What happens now isn't loud, it's precise. The field around you starts to hum, and that hum is resonance, the quiet physics of a turning point, doing what turning points do. You'll notice it first in small ways, like the sea announcing itself as ripples before it shows you the tide. The email you were going to chase arrives unprompted. A message lands from someone who has no idea they are saying the exact sentence you needed to hear. A task that used to feel like pushing a boulder uphill suddenly rolls with you, as if the hill forgot its angle. None of these moments are fireworks. They're evidence, the system acknowledging your coherence. Resonance builds in layers. Each truthful move you make becomes a tuning fork, calling the next piece into pitch. When enough forks vibrate together, the room changes. That's when doors begin to align with keys you already hold. It isn't luck, it's fit. You didn't force a lock. You became the hand that knows how to turn it. This is why the biggest shift is internal, a passage from scarcity to sufficiency, from straining to receiving. Scarcity trained your nervous system to scan for loss even in the presence of gain. Sufficiency lets your body learn a new sentence: I can let good things stay. The practice is ordinary and daily. You take the call without overdressing it with urgency. You accept the compliment and let it land instead of deflecting it with a joke. You deposit the payment and don't make it prove anything. Every time you do, you're teaching your system a different math. One, where enough is not a cliff but a field you can walk across. I think of this stage as moving from friction to flow, not because nothing ever bumps you, but because the bumps no longer determine your story. You stop looking for escape hatches and start looking for seams, the places where what you are becoming and what the world offers already touch. Those seams have always been there. The turning point makes them visible. Opportunities multiply here, but they do so with proportion. It's not a flood that washes you out to sea. It's a widening channel that knows your depth. The right people find you because your signal is cleaner. They are not responding to noise. They are responding to clarity. The right rooms open because you are no longer auditioning for rooms that need your disguise more than your truth. Money arrives in rhythms that match your capacity to steward it, not your fear that it will disappear. And even when something stalls, the stall is informative rather than condemning. You can read "not yet" without translating it into "never" for messages. From the outside, it might look like momentum. Inside, it feels like permission. Permission to move at the speed of honesty rather than the speed of panic. You begin to choose engagements that are aligned instead of impressive, conversations that feed instead of flatter, schedules that carry your life rather than crowd it. This is the alchemy of the turning point. It doesn't just change what you get, it changes what you accept. Don't be surprised if a small part of you tries to sabotage the ease. For years, your nervous system equated tension with meaning. When the rope loosens, the reflex is to find a new rope. You'll be tempted to complicate what works, to add steps where none are needed, to apologize for the space that has opened. Be gentle with that impulse and choose steadiness anyway. Ease is not laziness. It is the absence of unnecessary resistance. The river isn't lazy for flowing downhill. In practical terms, activation looks like stringing together a week of right-sized choices. You answer emails at a cadence your body can sustain, and notice how quickly guilt evaporates when you stop negotiating with it. You say yes to the project that scares you a little because it fits a lot, and you say no to the offer that flatters you but costs too much of your peace. You plan enough to respect your future and leave enough margin to respect your present. You sleep like someone whose work is sacred, because it is. The miracle here is cumulative. Ripples become waves not by force, but by timing gains arriving in the exact order that allows you to hold them. The meeting that leads to the introduction, that leads to the contract, that leads to the collaboration. None of these steps would have worked if they had come out of sequence. Your job isn't to juggle the order. It's to keep your field congruent so the order can find you. And yes, challenges still show up, but notice how they function now, not as proof that you were foolish to try, but as shaping tools. A delay highlights the boundary you forgot to name. A misunderstanding corrects a tone you didn't realize you were carrying. A no from a gate you thought you needed pushes you toward a door that actually fits your hands. You aren't succeeding in spite of these frictions. You're succeeding through them. The way muscles grow by meeting resistance, that's carefully increased, not random strain. If you want a simple way to cooperate with this phase, let your gratitude be specific and embodied. Don't just think "I'm grateful," feel where the gratitude lands. Is it warmth behind the sternum? A quieting in the throat? A loosening at the base of the skull? Mark it with a breath. Say thank you to the exact detail. Thank you for the call that came when I stopped rehearsing my worth. Thank you for the pause that kept me from rushing a yes. Thank you for the check that taught me stewardship, not status. Specific gratitude anchors gain into the body, and what is anchored is easier to keep. Also, keep your rituals boring. This is not the time to abandon what steadies you because life finally got exciting. Success has weather. Rituals are roofing. One page in the journal, even when you think you have no time. 5 minutes of quiet, especially on days you can't afford quiet. Water, sunlight, movement, the simple sacraments that tell your system it is allowed to be well while it grows. The point of the wave is not to knock you over. It is to carry you farther without requiring more flailing. You will likely encounter onlookers who attribute your turning point to luck. Smile if you have the energy. Otherwise, keep walking. Luck might open a window. Coherence builds the house. What they can't see are the nights you chose. Calm over rush. Honesty over performance. Alignment over applause. What they can't measure is the softness you cultivated until it became strength. The kind that bends without breaking. Receives without grabbing. Speaks without shouting. At some point, you'll stand in a room, maybe your own kitchen. Maybe an office you once thought belonged to someone else, and realize that what felt unimaginable a year ago now feels appropriate. Not flashy, appropriate. Your calendar looks like you chose it. Your relationships sound like you can breathe in them. The number in your account no longer dictates your worth because you've learned how to treat money as a tool, not an identity. The real wealth is calmer, a regulated nervous system, a trustworthy voice, a life that fits in the bones. And that's when you understand why the wave needed the ripples, why the feast needed the tasting spoon, why the gold required that last fire. The sequence wasn't delay, it was design. The universe did not reward you for performing a version of yourself. It responded to the truth you kept repeating until it became the only signal you sent. If you're standing on that shoreline now feeling the pull, hearing the depth, here's your only task. Keep saying yes to the small, right things, and no to the small, wrong ones. Keep choosing reception over grasping, clarity over speed, sufficiency over spectacle. The tidal wave is not coming to drown you. It's coming to lift you, because you have become the person who can ride it without losing yourself. This is the quiet turning, not a victory parade, but a steady widening of grace. Not proof that you are better than anyone, but confirmation that you finally stopped abandoning who you are. And when you move from scarcity to sufficiency, from grabbing to receiving, life stops arguing and starts agreeing with your frequency, with your breath, with the way your feet meet the ground. The world rearranges itself around that agreement. And what once required grinding effort begins to move toward you, like the tide toward the shore, faithful, generous, right on time. 8. Frequency maintenance, keeping it, is the real win. There is a quieter art beyond the cresting of any wave, learning how not to slide back down. Many people touch the summit for a moment, and then find themselves drifting to lower ground without knowing why. It isn't because they didn't deserve the view. It's because they forgot that every new height has its own weather. And weather requires maintenance. The nervous system that carried you up must now learn how to live there steadily, kindly, without burning the house down to keep the lights on. Think of success as altitude. The air is thinner. Respiration must be deeper. The views are wider. Focus must be gentler. If you try to keep operating with the same tension that helped you climb, you will fatigue and call it fate. What keeps you here is not more force. It is frequency care tending the field that made the rise possible so it can hold, distribute, and steward the height you've reached. I hold this care in 3 concentric circles: yourself, your space, And your bonds, they're not rules, they're rhythms. When you keep these rhythms, life stops swinging wildly between peak and crash. It begins to hum. Yourself sleep, food, stillness. When the season turns good, the first thing people sacrifice is the very ground that allowed good to land. They sleep less because opportunity is now or never. They eat whatever is near because schedules swell. And they drop stillness because things are finally moving. But the field does not confuse motion with nourishment. It recognizes only the conditions that keep it coherent. Sleep is not a luxury item. It is the nightly retuning of your instrument. At altitude, you need more tuning, not less. Treat bedtime like an appointment with your future self. 30 minutes of gentleness before lights-out screens dimmed. A short stretch, a page of anything that soothes will return tenfold in clarity the next day. Notice the difference between collapsing and arriving in bed. Collapse is the body's last defense. Arrival is a decision that your work deserves a well-rested steward. Food is the chemistry of your field. Eat in a way that helps your body believe you, not resent you. This is not an aesthetic project. It is a practical one. Clean, steady energy prevents you from craving chaos for stimulation. If your meals keep your blood sugar riding a roller coaster, your calendar will imitate it. Choose simple, real foods most of the time. Drink water like you mean it. And befriend hunger enough to ask what it actually wants: fuel, rest, or comfort, before you answer on autopilot. Stillness is how you metabolize velocity. Even 5 minutes of sitting with your breath recalibrates the signal you transmit. You're not meditating to become impressive. You're meditating to remain available to the good you've invited. When attention scatters, abundance leaks. A quiet sit gathers the spill. If you can, anchor stillness to a doorway you pass daily after you make the bed, before you open your laptop, in the car before you walk in. Repetition turns a pause into a portal. The result of this personal maintenance isn't perfection. It's predictability, in the best sense. People can trust your presence because you do. Your energy stops arriving in spikes and crashes. It comes as a steady current. That steadiness is rare, and rare has gravity. Your space make room for the frequency to live. Success without housekeeping becomes clutter. The field you've grown needs a place to sit down. If your physical world still mirrors the cramped version of you, your nervous system will interpret expansion as intrusion and try to push it away. The cure isn't to buy a new life. It's to prepare the life you have. Begin with what your eyes land on every morning. Is your desk a negotiation? Is your doorway a museum of yesterday's bags and coats? Do you have a chair that is only a pile of clothes in a different shape? You don't have to empty the whole house. Clear one surface and protect it like a garden. The brain reads clear surfaces as permission. The body reads them as breath. Then consider friction. What do you do daily that is 5 steps longer than it needs to be? The coffee filter stored across the room, the charger buried under a tangle of cords, the file you need living 3 folders deep. Remove 1 friction a day. You are telling your field, your time matters. Your attention is precious. Your work deserves ease. Light matters. 2. Pull a chair into the patch of sun that visits your place at 9 a.m. and sit there for 1 email. Move the desk so your eyes meet a tree, a window, a piece of sky. This is not whimsy. It is nervous system engineering. Orientation to natural light regulates circadian rhythms, and regulated rhythms keep your signal clean. Finally, defend a landing pad for newness, a drawer that is empty on purpose, a portion of your calendar labeled white space that you treat as an asset, not a vacancy. If every drawer and hour is full, opportunity has nowhere to land except on top of you. Fullness feels successful. It is often a sign of fear. Leave room. Life respects room. See, Your bond's boundaries as a form of love success stresses relationships the way altitude stresses lungs. Not because people are bad, but because roles shift. Some who loved you in your smaller weather unconsciously rely on you to stay there. Others will celebrate your rise as long as you still donate your old labor and silence. If you do not retune your agreements, you will keep your wins by sacrificing yourself. That is not keeping, that is eroding. A boundary is not a wall. It is a clear doorway that says, this is how we remain kind to each other. Start with logistics before philosophy response times. Availability, the kind of favors you no longer offer by default. Put agreements in places where both parties can see them. Calendars, shared notes, simple sentences in email. When pressure comes, and it will, you won't have to conjure courage from thin air. You will have a prior yes guarding your present. Practice saying small no's early so you don't have to say dramatic no's later. I can't make that timeline, but here's what I can do. I'm not available for that role anymore. Though I'm happy to recommend someone who is. I can talk tomorrow, not tonight. Each sentence is a stitch in the fabric that keeps your field from tearing. And then, the inward boundary stop, volunteering your peace as payment for belonging. The right rooms want you regulated, not depleted. The right partnerships prefer your clear no to your resentful yes. The right love grows when truth enters the conversation, even if voices tremble. If a bond requires you to be hollow to keep it, it isn't a bond. It's a bargain you can gently decline. Keeping versus chasing. An undercurrent runs through all maintenance, shifting from chasing to keeping. Chasing is adrenaline loud, convincing, brittle. Keeping is tone quiet, steady, resilient. Chasing begs for more proof. Keeping thanks the proof already arrived and organizes life to honor it. Chasing feeds on novelty. Keeping refines what's working. Chasing is expensive. Keeping is profitable in the deepest sense. Because coherence compounds, a practical way to embody keeping is to choose boring rituals you can love. 1 page in the journal, no matter how uninspired. 10 true breaths before big calls. The weekly reset where you clear surfaces, wash linens, and refresh your calendar with the same tenderness you'd reserve for a guest room. These aren't chores. They are signals. They tell your nervous system, we intend to stay well. Another is to practice specific gratitude. Not a general I'm grateful, but thank you for the client who respects the boundary. Thank you for the hour of sun at my desk. Thank you for the small yes that arrived on the day I didn't hustle. Gratitude at this granularity locks gain into the body. What is embodied is easier to keep. Expect some part of you to miss the chaos. We confuse urgency with meaning because urgency kept us alive once. When you feel the itch to stir trouble, breathe and choose maintenance. Instead, water, a walk, a small task, finished cleanly. A conversation you've been postponing, because calm is scarier than conflict. Give your system a new high, the quiet satisfaction of a day that fit. Strength, not strain. Longevity at altitude isn't about how tight you can hold. It's about how strongly you can support. Strain clenches, hoards, and isolates. Strength distributes, shares, and rests. Ask of every new responsibility, where will the weight live? If the answer is on my nervous system, redesign it. Delegate a slice. Automate a step. Reduce the scope, or lengthen the timeline. Success worth keeping is success you can hand over to routines, systems, and trustworthy people. In time, you'll notice a different kind of confidence settling in. Not the brittle kind that needs to be admired, but the grounded kind that can be trusted in bad weather. You'll realize that true victory was never the peak photo. It's the quiet morning weeks later when you wake rested. Look around a space that breathes. Text people who know your boundaries and love you more for them. and step into work that still fits. The height held, not because you gripped harder, but because you became the person who could carry it. And that is the art frequency as stewardship. Keep your 3 circles clean: yourself, your space, your bonds, and the field you built won't just stay. It will deepen. Success will stop feeling like a visitor you must entertain and start feeling like a resident you live alongside. Steady, generous, here for the long haul. 9. The signal constellation, reading it so you don't miss it. There are seasons when life starts speaking in clusters instead of single words. You notice a few old ties fall away without argument, as if the rope simply loosened and slid back into the sea. Your intuition, usually a quiet neighbor, moves into the front room and begins to rearrange the furniture with confidence. Coincidences arrive not as rare visitors, but as a steady line at the door. A few small winds land with the easy authority of things that belong, and right beside them, almost rudely timed, appears a test, so precise it finds the one tender place you thought you'd hidden well. If you're seeing this combination, you are not unlucky or imagining patterns where none exist. You are standing at a threshold. This is the constellation of signals that gathers at the edge of a wider life. The first temptation is to turn up the volume on worry. When many variables change at once, the nervous system searches for control, tightening the jaw, shortening the breath, rehearsing catastrophes to feel prepared. But thresholds don't open to panic. They open to presence. You don't need louder thoughts. You need truer attention. Think of a radio with a slight hiss. Spinning the dial wildly only multiplies the static. A gentler hand finds the station by millimeters. This is what we're doing now, reducing noise until the station that's already broadcasting can be heard. Begin with the simplest recognition. The signals are coherent. The loosening of old ties is not proof that you failed loyalty. It's space being made for fit. The swelling of intuition is not random mood. It's your deeper guidance stepping forward because it knows the way through this terrain. The unusual density of coincidences is not superstition. It's the external world meeting your internal alignment and answering in kind. The small wins are not teasers. They are calibrations, teaching your system how goodness feels so it can hold more without bracing. And the test. It is not sabotage. It is the gatekeeper doing what gatekeepers do, asking if the person at the door is the same one who left home. If you can accept that this cluster belongs together, you can stop fighting each element separately. You won't waste a week trying to resurrect a connection that is kindly releasing you. You won't ignore your body's yes because your mind hasn't written a thesis. You won't dismiss the third coincidence as meaningless when it's trying to hand you a map. You won't crown a small win as the final destination, or throw it away because it isn't yet the full picture. And when the test arrives, you won't call it a cosmic insult. You'll treat it like an instrument that tunes you the last few cents into pitch. Turn down worry. Turn up. Presence sounds poetic until the day is loud. So let's make it practical. When the signal constellation is active, adopt a pacing that matches your capacity to stay conscious. Shorten the distance between your check-ins. An hour is a long time to remain on autopilot at a threshold. Set quiet pauses, like stepping stones. Breathe fully before you answer. Stand near a window before you hit send. Drink water before you say yes. These are not productivity hacks. They're regulation rituals. A regulated body recognizes guidance. A dysregulated body recognizes only danger and will try to hide, rush, or control. You might feel an old part of you rising to grab everything at once. The relationship you're releasing, the new opening, the bills, the random comment that hit too hard. Notice the urge to manage the whole sky. Then, like someone dimming bright lights in a theater, soften the scene down to what is present in your hands. Ask a gentle question. What is the next honest action I can take without abandoning myself? Often, it's remarkably small and remarkably freeing: an email that closes a loop, A text that sets a boundary. A calendar block that protects an hour of quiet. A drawer cleared so your life can exhale. The threshold doesn't ask you to sprint. It asks you to stay accurate. As you move, keep listening for the pattern. Not just the pieces, the loosened ties, the clearer intuition, the clustered coincidences, the modest wins, and the sharp test have a shared message. You've outgrown your old outline. When a plant grows, the pot doesn't argue. It simply becomes too small. Roots press, leaves search. Nothing is wrong. The shape needs to change. Trying to contort yourself back into what used to fit will not make you noble. It will make you numb. Honor the growth by letting your decisions reflect it, even before you feel fully ready. Here is something tender and true. Readiness rarely arrives as a trumpet. It shows up as a quieter refusal to keep betraying yourself. You look at a recurring pattern, the extra work you do to earn basic respect, the way you shrink in rooms that need your full height, the habit of apologizing for the space you require, and a line inside you stops bending. That line doesn't attack anyone. It just holds. The moment it holds, reality begins to reconfigure around it. Emails from the past go unanswered, and the earth keeps turning. A conversation you feared erupts into love because truth finally entered the room. An opportunity you were too tired to notice steps forward because you cleared the noise that kept it out of view. The signal constellation didn't make these outcomes. It revealed your part in allowing them when the hard test hits, because it will treat it as a fidelity check. Not fidelity to a plan, but to a frequency. Before you respond, do 3 small things. Feel your feet, lengthen your exhale, and name aloud the old reflex knocking at the door. I want to fix this, so no one is upset. I want to say yes so I don't feel left behind. I want to rush because slowness scares me. Then choose a response that a truer version of you could live with tomorrow. Maybe it's a softer no. Maybe it's a slower yes. Maybe it's silence while your body catches up to your courage. The test isn't demanding perfection. It's asking for continuity between who you've become and what you do next. Watch how often, at thresholds, the mind confuses volume with validity. The loudest narrative is rarely the wisest. A quieter knowing will be there, a few inches lower in the body, offering shorter sentences that do not need applause. Not this. This way. Wait. Go now. Trust those unadorned phrases. Wisdom rarely uses adjectives, and please don't scold yourself for being afraid. Fear is not the enemy. It's a weather report from a part of you trained to keep you alive. Thank it for its service. Then, let today's self pilot the ship. The old navigator assumes you're still in yesterday's waters. You aren't. Calmly update the chart. The reef you once circled may no longer be dangerous, and the open water you once avoided may now be where your keel sits truest. You will know you're reading the constellation well when gratitude shows up without a performance. Not a generic "I'm grateful," but precise acknowledgments that anchor gain into your body. Grateful for the friend who understood your boundary, for the quiet hour that steadied your breath, for the small payment that taught you stewardship, for the no that redirected you to a better door. Specific gratitude is practical magic. It stabilizes goodness by letting your nervous system memorize how it feels. A final word about pace at thresholds. Speed seduces. There is so much happening that acceleration feels like competence. But competence here is measured in coherence, not miles per hour. Keep your rituals boring and faithful. Sleep like someone whose future deserves a rested caretaker. Eat like someone who expects to think clearly tomorrow. Sit in silence long enough to hear the station beneath the static. Sweep a surface. Open a window. Touch a tree. These small agreements with life are not side quests. They are the electricity that keeps the room lit while the architecture shifts. One day soon, you will look back on this exact patch and recognize it for what it was, not chaos, not coincidence, but choreography. The pieces didn't just happen near each other, they knew each other. The old ties loosened to make room for fit. Intuition got louder so you wouldn't miss the turn. Synchronicity thickened to guide your steps with kindness. Small wins practiced your capacity to receive. The test refined your integrity at the temperature where it used to melt. You didn't pass because you overpowered life. You passed because you stopped abandoning the person your life was already shaping you to be. So if the signals are gathering, if the rope is slipping without your grief needing a villain, if your body's yes is out singing your mind's caution, if the world is winking at you in clusters, if small goodness sits warm in your hands while a sharp challenge knocks, don't turn up the worry. Turn up the presence. Trust the process. Trust your body. Trust the layer of you that is arriving. Then take the next honest step and let the door do what doors do when you meet them with who you truly are. Open, as if it had been waiting because it has precedence. Victory is not possession. It is harmony. There is a way the world opens that has nothing to do with conquest. Not breaking the door. Not bargaining with the lock. Not proving your worth to a gate that never belonged to you. The opening I'm speaking of happens when your inner pitch matches the key of the life that's truly yours. In that instant, there is no contest, only consonance. The door swings because it recognizes its own note in you. You did not come here to muscle your way through existence. You came to resonate with what is yours. The universe doesn't respond to declarations shouted into the wind. It answers the signal you carry when no one is watching. Every conscious breath is a small tuning, the string pulled gently back to pitch. Every loving choice at the edge of anger is reinforcement for your field. Every quiet minute you keep for stillness is a return to the native rhythm under all the noise. When you change frequency, life changes its language. Opportunity stops, behaving like a rare animal. You must stalk and starts acting like a familiar bird that lands when the window is open. Not because you became louder, but because you became truer. You begin to see what was always nearby. You receive without clutching, and you keep without hardening. This is not a victory over the world. It is a reunion with it. If, as you listen now, a small meadow of calm opens in your chest, take that as a sign. Nearness feels like quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening in the right order. You are closer than your mind can measure. This closeness does not require you to fix your life in a single afternoon. It asks for something simpler, more faithful, one honest step taken from a regulated body. Repeat it until a path appears, where maps once failed you. Do not cling to the old just because it knows your name. Familiarity is not fidelity. What is finished can still be honored as you set it down. Let your thank you be soft, and your letting go be clean. The heat you feel as you walk forward is not a warning. It is the last fire that forges shape. Gold learns itself at that temperature. You are not being burned for punishment. You are being clarified for capacity. Harmony does not mean life will never challenge you. It means challenges lose their ability to recruit your self-betrayal. You won't reach for frantic explanation every time someone misunderstands you. You won't overwork to earn a basic seat at a table that has forgotten how to feed. You won't shrink in rooms that need your full height. The rhythm you've practiced, breath, truth, small steps, steady boundaries will do the heavy lifting on days your courage feels thin. Rituals are how frequency remembers itself in weather. Keep your victories flexible. The blessing you can't bend with will one day break you. Success worth keeping is success you can rest in. That's why we cared so much about maintenance, your sleep like a promise, your food like a kindness, your space like a welcome, your relationships like clear doorways rather than invisible mazes. Longevity is not a mystery. It is the arithmetic of coherence repeated over time. You may feel a tug to apologize for your peace. Don't. Peace is not arrogance. It is availability to love, to work that fits, to presence with the people you're actually with. Your calm is not an affront to those still running. It is an invitation to another pace. Some will decline it. Let them. The right companions will recognize your cadence and find their breath beside you. When doubt returns, and it will treat it as weather, not judgment, weather passes more quickly through a body that remembers the ground. Feel your feet. Lengthen your exhale. Ask the simplest wise question. What is the next truthful action I can take without abandoning myself? Do that. Then repeat. Streetlight to streetlight. River bend to river bend. You won't hear trumpets. You'll hear something better, the soft click of a life aligning with itself. Understand, this possession is a fragile theology. It exhausts you with guarding, hoarding, and comparing. Harmony is sturdier. Harmony distributes weight, cher pèse, and lets goodness circulate. In harmony, money becomes a tool with clear tasks. In harmony, time stops pretending to be your enemy and becomes a boundary you can love. In harmony, love is not a performance, but a practice. Not a negotiation, but a meeting. If you need a closing image, hold this. A door you once pushed against with your shoulder now opens because your hands are steady and your breath is kind. You step through without spectacle, and the room on the other side isn't awash in fireworks. It's lit in a way that makes you exhale. Your work table is clear. Your chair meets the morning light. The people there don't need you to be smaller to stay. The tasks are honest enough to merit your attention. You live quietly, deeply, like someone who became compatible with the life they asked for. And if, in this very moment, a thin ribbon of fear winds through your calm, fear of moving without the old armor, fear of being seen at your full height, fear that receiving might make you soft, place a hand on your chest. Feel the drum that never voted against you. Take one breath. You can feel all the way to your back. Whisper the sentence you can stand in tomorrow. I choose harmony over hurry. I choose presence over proof. I choose the next honest step. Then take it. Do not idolize force. Let your gentleness be muscular. Let your boundaries be doors, not walls. Let your gratitude be specific enough to anchor the gains that arrive. Let your rest be the proof that you intend to stay. Victory, in this new weather, is not a trophy you must polish. It is a relationship you tend between your breath and your day, your yes and your no, your field, and the larger field whispering through everything. Keep that relationship clean, and the world will keep meeting you where you can be well. If you've read to here and felt a new quiet gather, trust it. You are very near. Don't hold the old because it's familiar. Don't refuse the flame because it is warm. Place your hand over your heart. Inhale as if the air were on your side. And take the next faithful step. What belongs to you is already moving your way at the exact pace of the frequency you are keeping. Match it not with noise, but with note, not with possession, but with harmony, and let your life finally sing.